everybody, it's Emily from Life Sew Savory, and today I'm going to be starting one of my first summery projects, which does not feel like summer today. However, I'm being optimistic and looking ahead, and I think it's time that we start sewing some summery items. So I'm going to be making my daughter the girls romper, which is a free pattern you can download using the link in the details of this video, and we're going to be making the shorts version. So I'm going to be doing this project in two parts because I don't have elastic to do the top part. So we are going to sew the bottom this afternoon. I'm going to show you how to do the pockets and the first start of this, and then next week we'll sew the top of this romper and we'll put it together. So I'm super excited about this. This is a project that my daughter wore. The two that you can see, if you click through the link to the free pattern, you'll see her in a pink version and sort of a white and blue version, and she wore those two rompers all the time until, you know, rompers eventually they get too short and they just don't fit very well anymore. So she wore those until she could not wear them any longer, and then it was time, you know, to say goodbye. So those went into the donate pile, and now I'm gonna make her a new one. So I've got some really fun stretch crepe fabric that I got from Raspberry Creek Fabrics, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And this is my first time actually sewing with this kind of fabric, so I think it seems perfect for this project because while this project calls for knit fabric, it doesn't need a fabric with a ton of stretch. So I think that we're able to sew it with this fabric that just has a bit of stretch in it. So anyway, I'm excited about that, and we're going to be sewing it live. So let's talk about the fabric, and then actually I noticed right before I went live that my serger has black thread in it, and this is a white stretch crepe. So I'm going to cross my fingers and change out my serger thread live for you and show you how I do that real quick. And I know I've demonstrated that before, but it's always fun to see again. So you'll get to see change the serger thread, and then we're gonna sew up the bottom of these shorts. So stretch crepe, this is a super fun fabric. Look at this cute pattern. Okay, so it definitely has some stretch, but it is not a stretch fabric. All right, so hopefully it will work for this. Again, this romper does call for a stretch, but the one I used before was actually a two-way stretch, so it really did only stretch side to side like a t-shirt knit and not up and down. So that's why I'm thinking this one, because it has a little stretch side to side, will actually work. But okay, so before we get into sewing that, let me show you what else came in my order with this stretch crepe. So you can make up to like the size 10 of this short romper, so it's short, it's not long, with 1 yard of fabric. So that's what I had of the stretch crepe, and then I'm going to make myself a dress out of this beautiful double waffle, and I'm really excited to show you about that next week. So that's what I have here. And it's been washed and folded, and it's just beautiful. And then I bought I have like 3 yards of that color, and then I have, I think, a yard of this one, and I'm gonna make something pretty for Rose in it. I'm working on redoing the Schools Out free dress, and it only goes up to 6, and I know several of you have asked for larger sizes. So that is my goal. Is for next week is to offer that in some larger sizes. So you guys can think about getting excited about larger sizes of that free dress pattern. Okay, so let's head over to the sewing area, and we are going to change the thread in my serger and then get started on sewing. So let's just swing around here. Okay, so here's the serger. And you can see that it has black thread in it, and that won't work really well for this project. So my first choice of changing out the thread is always just the pull through method. So I'm gonna cut all the colors, leaving about a 6-inch tail coming out of there, and then remove these black spools of thread. And this, I would say this method works 95% of the time. Every once in a while it doesn't, and I have to go ahead and manually thread it. But if you're just switching out every spool, you should be able to just pull through the threads. So I like to tie, I don't even know what you call it, just tie both threads in a knot as one. What kind of knot is that? Do you guys know? What would I call that sort of knot? It's not a slip knot, it's not a bow knot, it's just a knot. And that lets me tug on the thread, and it holds, plus it's a really small knot, which I love because then it goes through all the holes that it needs to, except for the needles. Usually I end up having to, what is going on? I usually end up having to cut the knot and then thread the needles manually once I get to that point. But I can pull it through the tension discs and the loopers. It goes all the way through there with this kind of knot. So that is what I'm doing to all 4 spools of thread. And then we will test my knot tying and ability. Okay, so you turn your serger on. I like to open this up so I can see what's going on inside. And then you also want to lift your presser foot to release all the tension discs so that you can pull the threads more easily. So usually what I try to do is find the looper threads. And this one's really easy to see if it's come through or not because we're changing from black to cream. So really obvious difference in the 2 colors of thread. Okay, so that was a needle. I'm just grabbing hold of threads here and trying to pull them. Okay, there's the other. Sometimes it will get caught up here a little bit in the tension discs, so you just want to make sure you go ahead and tug enough that it comes through. So I am missing one of the loopers here. So I have 4 threads. 3 are still black because my 2 needles haven't pulled through. So I guess what I'm going to do now, so I can see which of those which is the right one. Put the presser foot down. I'm going to cut the needle threads on both sides of the knot, and then I can pull the cut threads out from the bottom. So now I just have the 1 black thread. And then I also have my 2 new needle threads here. And if you can't tell which one is which, you just can tug on them and see which thread moves. And then I'm going to manually thread the needles, hopefully, if it will go through. And we'll see. Apparently that's thick thread in a fuzzy hole or something. I'm not sure. Okay, so I've got 1 through. Okay, make sure it's, I need to clean my serger. There's lots of fuzz going on here. That's not good. I know what maybe the project will be this afternoon. I actually been sewing a lot with just a sewing machine, doing some bags and some other things. So my serger probably hasn't gotten as much love as it usually does. You can tell it still has black thread in it, that it was ready. It was, you know, I was using it for a lot of winter projects. I do not remember having such trouble threading these needles. My eyes are going. Okay, So now we have 3 white threads coming out, and the last thing is now I know which one is that other looper, pull it through the tension discs, and like I said, those tiny knots should pull through the looper eyes. So now we have 4 new threads, and I'm going to, well, I'm gonna leave this open, but I'm gonna lower the presser foot, and then it should work just fine because it was working fine before, but you always wanna turn that hand crank and do several stitches just to test it out and make sure that you're ready to go again. So I think we're ready to go again. We will try it on this fabric. I'm gonna return my settings sort of to the base before we get started. And we're gonna start by creating the pockets. Okay, so actually I'm going to sew the pockets to the pants first. Okay, so we have right and left side of the front of the romper, and you can see the angle that the pockets go. I wasn't sure if I would have enough fabric, so I actually cut the pocket pouches out of this other fabric, but I would have had enough from the 1 yard to cut that, so you wouldn't have to do that. But so we're gonna match up the angled edges of the romper and the pocket pouch with right sides together. Okay, so there's one, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. We'll sew that with a serger, and then I'm hoping to top stitch it with the cover stitch machine before we attach it to the pants. Okay, so now both of them are pinned and ready to sew, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance, which is included, that seam allowance is included on nearly all of my free patterns. Okay, so now we're testing the tension on this pattern, and I'll go all the way down and see how it looks, and then show you if we need any adjustments. Okay, so when I first started, it looked like the loopers were a little bit too loose, but I think I just wasn't taking my full seam allowance, and by the time I got to the bottom, it really is laying nicely on the edge, and you can see still has that stretch. So I think our settings, you also want to make sure that, you know, the seam lays flat and that it's not puckered tight or rippled loose, and that you would adjust the differential feed. But I think this lays, you can see that lays pretty nice on there. So we're going to go ahead and take that as a win and sew the other side of the pocket. Okay, so now what we will do is fold the pocket back, and I'll put a couple of clips here to hold this. You could press this step if you want, or I do what I call the finger press, and as I sew, I just keep it laid flat. My iron is not currently set up right now, so we're going to go with that. And then we're going to sew it on the cover stitch. So I have the 2-needle top stitch set up on my cover stitch, and hopefully, and it's got kind of a tan fabric or thread, which I think will work just fine for what we have going. I'm rolling over my computer cords there. Okay. Which this I see now is not plugged in, so let me just thread this behind there. I had things all unplugged. I think what I was doing that I unplugged the machines, but plug them back in and we are ready to go. Okay, so like I said, I have 2 needles threaded. So this will be a double top stitch, And if you're not familiar with the cover stitch machine, it creates a 1, 2, or 3 needle stitch that also is stretchy because of the chain stitching that happens on the back end. And is great for top stitching and hemming, especially knit fabric where you need to keep that stretch. And if you have any store-bought t-shirts or anything like that, you would see this used on there. Oh, this is, no wonder it's feeling really tight. That thread was caught. Okay, well that will sew better. And I'll show you, oh goodness, it keeps getting caught around there. Oh goodness, okay. That is not great. Sometimes it's not the machine's fault. When you're having trouble, it's the thread or other things going on. So that is not great on there, but I didn't break a thread, so I think it will be okay. I'm gonna sew this one, and then I will show you what it looks like on the front and the back side. Hopefully this one will sew a little bit better because now we have the thread. I'm keeping one eye on this thread spool up here. Make sure it doesn't get stuck again. Okay, much smoother sewing. Okay, so here is the front of the cover stitch. You can see it's stretchy. And then here's the back with the looper chain stitch, which allows that to maintain its stretch even with stretch fabric. So I have a nice top stitch pockets. Okay, and I think that's probably all we will need that machine for. I don't know if any of you caught, yesterday I did a fun live show with Angela Wolf on the Brother Sews Facebook page. So I do that once a month, and I always enjoy doing that show. So that was yesterday, and that was a good time. So you can see here with right sides together, I'm putting the pocket on the pocket pouch, and on the front it will peek out of the side of the pocket. So if you have something you're lining up, you'll want to check that now. If not, we'll be sewing that curved edge. So let's walk through again with this one. Okay, the pocket pouch has a flat side and then a curved rest of it. And the flat side is what goes on the side seam of the romper. And then the curved part lines up with the curved part of the pocket pouch, and we sew that, and then the top will get included in the waistband, and that side will get sewn into the side seam. Okay, so we're gonna sew around there like that. Yay, Lois, you saw the cinch pouch. I know, it was so cute, and my daughter got home and of course wanted to claim that pouch for herself. Everyone wants to take my projects for their own. When you're sewing this pocket, you do want to make sure that you are keeping the pants out of the way, okay, so that you're not getting any of that caught up in what you're sewing. And then after you finish, I like to lay it out and put a clip on the side seam to hold that in place, because we'll want to include that in the side seam, and then lay it out flat and place one clip at the top too to hold that in place, so that as we sew the top and the side, the pocket stays untouched. Okay, so there's one pocket and pouch ready to go. If you missed my little introduction at the beginning of today's show, this is the girls romper pattern, and I'm sewing it with shorts for summer. So there are there markings on the pattern? I don't know. I'm probably working off, sometimes the version of the pattern that I printed was not the final one that I published, because then I added like all the markings. I just printed it to like test the fit. So if I don't change the fit, sometimes I'll keep an old version of the pattern printed. So the version I had did not have shorts marked where to cut. So I just was eyeballing that up with a decent inseam, or you can compare it to shorts that you have. Totally easy to convert to shorts, even if the pattern doesn't have that marking. Or you can make it in long. So it has it's short sleeve regardless of how long the leg is that you use. So you can decide if you want short sleeve shorts or long pants. Okay, so there's the other pocket included in there. So now we're going to sew up the front crotch seam. Where I'm going with this is I don't have the elastic, it's on order, that I need to finish the top of the pattern. So I'm going to do this in 2 parts. So today's show is going to be sewing the bottoms, which I'm going to finish here relatively quickly. And then next week, we'll sew the cute top and put it together into a romper. Okay, so you get to see all those parts individually. And that's the plan for sewing it. All right, so there's the front, and now when we open it up, you can see the pockets. Okay, super cute. If you have not seen this model, you should definitely click through and check out the photos of my daughter wearing it maybe 2 years ago. I'm not sure how long ago I shared the original version of this, but it's so cute. And she really did wear and wear and wear both versions until they no longer fit. Okay, so now I'm sewing that same curved seam on the back of the shorts. And we're just assembling these like we would any pair of shorts. Okay, there's the curved back, and obviously the back is much scoopier to accommodate for the rear end than the front of the shorts is, and that is the same on any shorts pattern. So now I'm going to lay out the front of the shorts, and we're going to match the sides. So starting at the top, I'll put a clip, and then I have this clip here from the side seam of the pocket. So I'll leave those 2 on there. The rest of it I can pretty much just line up as I'm sewing it down. So one at the top and one where the pocket is there on the side. Okay, so I've pinned those 2 places on the side seam. And then we will go ahead and sew down. So you do want to make sure you catch that bottom edge of the pocket to make sure that is secured in the side seam, and that will help everything to lay really smoothly. Sometimes, depending on the fabric, I will go back. What is this bump? I will go back and reinforce with some top stitching where the bottom of the pocket meets the side seam, just because I know with hands going in and things going in, that gets quite a bit of pull and pressure. So if you feel after you've sewn it and you look at it and you think, oh, that looks like a weak point, and I'll open it up and show you that spot that I mean. If you think it looks like a weak point, then go ahead and just reinforce it with some zigzag or some top stitching on your regular machine after you have sewn the rest of the outfit or the side seam. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a really fun stretch crepe. So it almost is like working with a stretch woven. Feels more like a woven, but has just that little bit of stretch to allow you to use it for some projects like this where you don't need a ton of stretch. So here's that spot on the side seam that I'm talking about that you might want to reinforce. So right there at the bottom of the pocket, sometimes depending on my side seam and how well I feel like I sewed it, I'll go ahead and add some reinforcement stitching right there. But otherwise, the shorts are coming along super cute. The pockets are always so fun. And we are now going, oh, I will need the cover stitch again to hem the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it back, right sides together, and put a pin in the center. We're gonna sew up the inseam, okay, on both legs. So I'm sewing up one leg. Because this fabric is a two-way stretch, not a four-way stretch, some of these seams I can really feel the stretch more than others because I'm sewing the way that the fabric has stretched. That inseam, I could definitely feel a little bit of the stretch there. Okay, so because I just winged my cut of the shorts, it appears that I didn't cut both sides perfectly equal. I did not measure, so any trimming that you want to do to level off the bottom of the shorts, it's best to do it now before we hem them. So I'm going to turn this right side out, and then starting on that inseam, you can fold over whatever sort of hem you're comfortable with. I usually like about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that hem down all the way around the bottom of these shorts so we can go ahead and hem them. You may also want to leave this for the very end to try the shorts on your model and then decide how you want to hem it. So totally up to you. Okay, so we'll do both legs. I always like to fold over on both side seams and then work back towards the middle with my clips. You could always press this as well before you sew it, or press it after you sew it. Whatever you want to do. And then we're going to sew this again on the cover stitch machine. Okay. So we will use that same double needle. And I like to start on that inseam so that if it's not as pretty at the beginning with some of the stitches, because I don't know, sometimes getting started takes a little bit to get going, then that's on that inner leg of the garment where you just don't see it as much. So that's where I always like to start my hems no matter what sewing machine I'm using. And you can see I'm sewing on the right side of the fabric, so I can't actually see where that fold is up, but you can go by measurement. So there's a little ruler on here that shows that I'm sewing, you know, a 1/2 inch hem. You can also feel through the fabric and see that you're sewing on the edge of that fold over. And the beautiful thing about those loopers that we saw on the back of this sort of stitching is that it also finishes the raw edge of this woven. Well, this isn't really a woven, but if it were a woven, it finishes the raw edge of that. So you want to go over and overlap your stitches about 2 inches. And then I like to take a pin and raise my presser foot and pull out. And then, so then I can pull out and then chain off. And once you cut those chains, you are able to pull all the threads through to the back of the project, which then allows me, what is that caught on, to tie them off. Okay, so then I have all those threads on the back, and because you can't back stitch on this machine, I like to do this tie off method. The manual says that if you overlap 2 inches, you don't really even have to do anything like that. So it's up to you how you want to do that. But you can see here on the back, so see how it went over the raw edge of the fabric, and then on the front we have a nice hem. Okay, so that's how it looks with this machine using hemming. We're going to do the other leg. So again, starting in the inseam where it's just not as noticeable, and then going around. Oh, I didn't put my presser foot down. That I'll have to go back over that. So if you don't put your presser foot down, then the loopers, those loopers underneath are really like loopy, because they have to stretch farther to accommodate for the presser foot being up. So I don't want to leave it like that, because that will not be pretty, and my needle stitches may also come out. So when I get back around, we are going to go back over that whole section that I sewed incorrectly, and I can see here how loose my needle threads are. So I need to look and see, where did I put the needle back down? Okay, and I'm going to cut some of these threads that are in the way, and then we're going to go, instead of 2 inches overlap, it'll be more like 3 inches overlap to accommodate for that little mistake that I made. But if you sew right on top of your other stitches, it's not even super noticeable. So now we will do the same, chaining off, catching both needles, pull that out of the way before you chain off. And then cut any loose threads. Oh yeah, those loopers are really not, they're really loopy. Okay, and I apparently didn't get a good chain, so I got to use a pin here to pull these through from the front side. So I don't just want to cut that needle thread, because it makes me worried that it will come undone. So that's why I like to, again, pull it all the way to the back side, then you have 2 needles and the looper thread, and you just have something to tie off rather than just simply cutting it. So I like to make sure I'm pulling those needle threads to the back before I cut them. And then there is hem number 2. So for part 1 of this cute little romper project, we have the shorts, and you can see I made these, this is a good 5-inch inseam. I wanted these to be school appropriate for spring, so I didn't make the inseam super short, but you can also, of course, adjust and make them whatever length you want, and really cute. So we have the pockets ready to be included into that waistband, and next week I'll have the elastic that I need to complete the top. So next week we will sew the top of the romper, and then we'll put it together, and you can see the completed look. So I'm excited to show you and sort of complete one spring project. So that is the tutorial for today. Quick and easy and simple. I hope you enjoyed it, and with a little, I know, so who just said that? Was that Jackie? Mary. Yes, so you could take these shorts and easily add a waistband of the same fabric that you're using, thread some elastic through it, and make really quick and easy shorts. So I know some of you, and I struggle with this myself, finding shorts that are appropriate and not super short for like school or other things like play wear around the house. I don't really care what my daughter wears, but school or church or camp, there are some times where I want shorts to be a little bit longer, and that gets really tricky to find them. So this would be really cute. They're loose fitting. I also have a Bermuda shorts pattern, which is a longer shorts pattern, and that one is made for like a twill or a denim or thicker fabric. So if you look up free shorts pattern, you'll find a variety. We do have one that's short. We have the Bermuda shorts that are longer. But again, those are not for knit fabric. So if you wanted ones that work with knit fabric, you could use this pattern to create longer shorts, and it would be so cute and easy. The one thing I would say if you're gonna make these into shorts is you'd wanna cut the top a little bit, maybe 1 inch down before you add the waistband, because this is made that when we sew this to the top, we create the elastic casing with this fabric. So I've probably included like an extra inch on the top of that to get sewn into the elastic casing that goes around on the romper waistband. So you probably would want to try it on, just take a look or compare it to other shorts that you had. And then I would probably trim off 1 inch around the top, or it's going to be a really baggy crotch, which is not necessarily a good look on shorts. So anyway, yes, pockets are fun on everything and so useful. So come back next week, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, that we will definitely be finishing this project and getting ready to finish it up and sew the top plus attach the 2 pieces together. So don't miss that. I'll see you next week, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Until then, bye.